said, welcome. We really appreciate you coming tonight to get some information on the scheduling process and some of the things you want to think about as you are looking at how you want your students scheduled when they come into ninth grade. And it's going to be some information on levels of courses that they should look to expect in their ninth grade year, and then looking forward as they go through high school. There is a lot of information, but it does go by fairly quickly. And there is one piece that I really want you to remember as you go through this and as you're working with your student, is the idea of what people call balance. The idea that there's a lot that can go on in a freshman student's year. And the biggest part is they're trying to get acclimated to a new school, a larger school that now has a different town of people in it. So they're going to meet different people. They're going to see a bunch of different clubs that they might want to get involved in. And they're going to have classes that kind of act in a way they're not typically used to from the middle school perspective. So they're a little harder to deal with. There's more things like homework and increased workload and things like that it's going to take them a little while to get used to. We expect that when students come in. And we'll obviously talk about that more in the summer when we hopefully see you in person for the next school year. And we can go from there. I say what most people call balance because the idea of balance is something neat to think about, but often we struggle and we can't achieve that. I view it more as negotiation. There are going to be times in your student's life where school requires more attention. And then times that only works if they take the other times and spend it with family or clubs or getting acclimated. So just think of that as we're going through the different levels of classes and so forth. But like I said, welcome. I'm glad to see you here. And Ruth, if you want to go ahead and start it out.
Great. Okay, hey everybody. I'm Ruth Kerrigan, Director of School Counseling, and I am going to share my screen. And great. So thanks everybody, and thanks for your patience as we are dealing with some of our technology challenges. So the first thing we want you to do is to actually meet your counselors. The school counselors are going to be the people that are here to guide you throughout this whole process in the 4 years that you're here at high school. So, or your kids are here at the high school. So here are our counselors. There's me. Mr. Murphy is new. Any of you who had older kids and had Mrs. Garrett, Mr. Murphy is not covering, but he's actually taking over. Mrs. Garrett retired in November, and Mr. Murphy is with us. He's doing a great job. He was our intern all of last year. So even though he's new full-time in our staff, he has been with us for the entire last year. We have Mrs. Seelig, who's been with us for probably about 12 or 14 years. Mrs. Cunha. Ms. Rivera is our new administrative assistant. And we also have Mr. Amato, and he has the end of the alphabet. And then some other really important people would be our adjustment counselors. And oops, we're gonna go back one, Dr. Jones. So the adjustment counselors are also part of the counseling staff, but where the school counselors really deal with everything from college and career to academic, and we also deal with some personal social. Our adjustment counselors are really the ones that focus on kind of the social work or the personal social issues with our students. So we have Mrs. Seiden, Ms. Dalton, and Mrs. Robershaw. And Mrs. Robershaw also runs our BRIGHT program, which is a transition program for kids that might be coming back from hospitalizations. But to show you in another way, just kind of the breakdown alphabetically and how it all works is, here we go. All right, so this is the breakdown. So I have the A and the B end of the part of the alphabet for last name. Mr. Murphy is C through F. Mrs. Seelig for the freshmen, next year's freshman will be G through L. Mrs. Cunha, M through P. Mr. Amato, Q through Z. And then again, Ms. Rivera, our administrative assistant. And then the next group down are our adjustment counselors. And for the 21-22 school year, Miss Dalton will actually be the adjustment counselor for the 9th graders and the 11th graders. Mrs. Seiden for the 10th and 12th. And again, Mrs. Robershaw runs our BRIGHT program. So that is a program for students if they're out on a hospitalization and they're coming back in to help transition back to school. And every year we have some great interns, and this year we're interning with Tony Campbell and Peyton Bradshaw. So one of the things we wanted to talk to you about tonight is the Panther Pathways Initiative. This is a program that we have been doing for a long time, but we've really started to kind of take it to a new level over the past couple of years. But it's a series of actually a comprehensive school counseling curriculum to help our kids become college and career ready by the time that they graduate. And it's a series of lessons and interest inventories that they do. You'll be hearing more about that in the years to come, but we wanted to let you know about that. And if you are not muted, if you can mute, that would be perfect. Thank you. So one of the things the school counselors deal with, and we're doing so many different things. We want to work with your kids to help them transition to high school and have a successful transition and to do well academically while they're here. But we also are always in mind in terms of helping them plan for what comes after high school. So our kids generally will look at 4-year schools, 2-year colleges, post-secondary training, things like HVAC and electrician, plumbing, cosmetology. Or we also have kids that will look at the military. And one of the things that I love about Whitman Hanson is that we do not say that all of our kids must go to 4-year schools. We want our kids to make a plan that's right for them. And part of that Panther Pathways helps them do that. We see as much value as a student choosing the military as a student choosing, to go to a top 4-year college. And one of the things to think about too is that all of our kids, students with disabilities, we're all helping them with these things and helping everyone go to college if that's what their plan is. But we want them to be college and career ready. So Dr. Jones, do you want to take this slide?
Yep, I was just unmuting myself.
Okay.
What you're gonna notice about the schedule is something different than what you've heard in the past. So those of you that are here that have had students come through before, you'll notice a different type of schedule. The schedule that students will see when they come in is going to consist of 7 periods that rotates. And when it rotates, it drops 1 period off so that they'll only see 6 of those 7 periods each day. And so what you have is they'll be labeled A through G, and the first day, on a day 1, they'll have A, B, C, D, E, F. And then the second day, because it's a true rotating schedule, it starts with G and then A, B, C, D, and it just rotates through that. You'll see a picture of it coming up in the slideshow, but there were a couple things that went into deciding to move to this schedule next year. One of the things was that with 7 periods, it allows students more choice with electives and things that they have interest in taking. With 6 periods meeting that last about an hour apiece, 57 minutes actually, that allows teachers and students to see each other face to face more frequently and miss fewer days during the week, which affords them more time in each class in front of the teacher over the course of a week. Their major academic classes, they take those for a full year. So when you hear semester 1 and semester 2, the end of semester 1 is the halfway mark for a major academic class like English, science, social studies, and math. Those are worth 4 credits apiece. Their electives that they take, those are only a half a year. So the semester break is actually the end of that class. And that class, just like it's a half year, is worth half the amount of credits as a full year course, which is 2 credits. And let me get down to, I wish I had an extra 3 fingers on each hand for all the different things. So a typical freshman schedule, because everybody gets worried about what they're going to be taking and so forth. Freshmen, just by the way things work out, a lot of their schedule is pretty much set in stone, so they can start their way to reaching the requirements they need for graduation and for credits. So this is broken up into the semesters like you saw, and period 1, for example, is English. It's your full year course. So English, math, biology, modern world history, and foreign language, those are your full year major core courses, and so they last throughout the year. Where kids will see the change is, say, period 4. The first semester they have PE, which is a requirement, and then they have an elective of their choosing or academic seminar. Academic seminar, a way to put that is that for folks that are closer to my age is study hall. Students will have the ability to work on different things during then, so that they don't have to worry about taking too much or an excessive amount of work home if they use that to their advantage. You'll also see in period 6, it could flip, where they have the elective or academic seminar first semester, and they have health second semester, which is a requirement for freshmen coming in. So here's the picture of the schedule that I told you about. And why we don't have the letters on there for what period it is, you'll notice that in the upper left-hand corner, day one, period one, that English would be a period. And so you'll notice that it goes down through there from English to biology, and Spanish is that seventh period that drops off and goes to day two. And then you'll notice they just move diagonal and down to the right. And that's how you can see the rotation that they have. So full rotation takes 7 days before they get back to that day one schedule. Looking at this way might seem a little confusing, but the copy of the schedule they get will have the periods on it, will have the rotation on it, will have the master list with all their periods there, with room numbers, times, things like that. So it becomes fairly easy for them to follow. One of the reasons for us moving to this type of rotating schedule is because it's clearer for students to follow. The one that we used to have rotated in 2 different directions. It rotated in the morning before lunch, and then there was a separate rotation after lunch. That became a little confusing, so we switched that up.
So in terms of graduation requirements, our students will need to complete 4 years of English, 4 years of math, 3 years of science, 3 years of social studies. And one of the required social studies classes is actually 2 of them are US history. Our students need 2 years of a foreign language of the same language. They need to take 1 health class. They are responsible for gym every year, although when they do get to 11th and 12th grade, there's a possibility of a waiver if they were involved in sports or involved in sports related activities outside of school. Our students also need to take some technology classes, and that's 2 classes over the 4 years. And one of them must be financial literacy. That is a requirement. We started it with this year's current freshmen. And then with the electives over the course of 4 years, there's room for about 20 electives. And overall, to graduate, students need to have 90 credits minimum. One of the nice things about our requirements is that the state colleges in Massachusetts have similar requirements. So if a student is graduating from Whitman-Hanson and has met our requirements, they will have met the state standards for the requirements for those colleges as well. And for technology credits, these are some of the classes that our kids can take for those. Again, I mentioned before that financial literacy is now a requirement. And as a mother, I can tell you that I wish my oldest son had taken that class when he was in high school. It would have served him very well. So we want our kids to be financially literate. And we think that this class is the best way to do that. So you can see the other classes, investing your money in web page, digital photography is a favorite, as is music tech. But there are a lot of great classes that students can take to meet that requirement. So Dr. Jones is going to talk to us about the levels.
Now, a lot of times course levels come up as a big question area of what people want their students to take or what they feel their students are ready for, which comes as recommendations out of school and so forth. We have 3 different levels. We have academic level, we have honors level, and we have advanced placement level. Often we get caught up in the idea of honors in the name of honors or the name of advanced placement, which for the purposes of this, we don't even really need to talk about, except that as an end game or a planning type of phase. But when you're deciding between academic and honors for your student, if your student did very well in middle school and the teachers recommend honors, that's great. Honors, though, is a class that while it covers the same material, it covers it a little deeper and it covers it faster. So there is an increased workload for students. And sometimes what we see is students will come to the high school who did pretty good in middle school, and their teachers, maybe one of their teachers recommended an honors course and the others didn't, and they want to bump up into honors and try honors. And sometimes that's where we run into some problems because of the increased workload and the speed with which they cover the curriculum. So when deciding something like that, it's important to listen to what the teachers recommend and have a really good discussion with your student about how involved or how much they're willing to work once they get in that class. Because as I said before, when freshmen get to the high school, it's a new experience. And while we don't want to discourage anybody from pushing themselves or trying hard, we also want to keep their social emotional health in our minds too, at the front of our thoughts, because if they're taking too many honors courses and they get stressed out, then everything suffers all around. Um, there are there are ways to deal with stress and things like that, but um, quite honestly, if they're going to be taking a few honors courses, it's not that great to load up with honors courses, unless they're really um, performing at a high level academically in middle school. Um, People usually look at honors and take honors because they start thinking about advanced placement. Now, advanced placement courses are basically your lower level college courses offered in high school, that students then test to get a score and hopefully get a qualifying score, which is a 3 out of 5, in hopes that colleges will take that as college credit. So people think that honors, you can't get into an advanced placement class without taking an honors class in that subject area first. That's not necessarily true, but honors is a good training ground, so to speak, to get into advanced placement. Um, Look, we look to find out and know who your students are, and the teachers work on building relationships with your students so they can make a good informed decision when they recommend whether your student moves to honors or advanced placement. So I think it's just important to listen to those recommendations. If you really do disagree with them, the best thing you can do is talk to the guidance counselor at the middle school who forwarded the recommendations, or maybe the teachers, and start there. And then if things aren't working there and you still really feel the need to change the placement recommendation of your student, feel free to talk to the guidance counselors up here at the high school, and we'll work with you through that.
Okay, so does your child hope to attend college? And if he or she does, there are some things that we want you to think about. But as Dr. Jones has mentioned, the most important thing is balance. You don't want to overload the students when they're coming up to high school. The workload is different, even for an academic level class. So balance is the key, and we don't want our kids to be overwhelmed. But if students do think that they'd like to attend college, they should take the highest level of courses that they can handle and balance over the years. So maybe they start out with some honors in academics, and then maybe increase it as they go through high school. But they should challenge themselves with extra math, science, and social studies and foreign language over the years. So maybe look at those electives and not necessarily do all the really fun ones, but think about some of the more the electives that are more in those major academic areas. And most important thing, to do their best, because colleges do look at grades from all years, and it starts freshman year, really the day that they walk into school. But we will be working with them and helping them make those plans and supporting them all the way through.
And if I could just jump in really
Sure.
quick, one of the things that your freshmen are going to notice is that they're going to be taking some inventories and things like that to find out what their interests are, and to kind of start to discover right from ninth grade what they're interested in, and what that tends to lead them towards as far as areas they want to study. So when Mrs. Kerrigan's talking about challenging themselves with math, science, social studies, that's what we hope they do. But if they're looking at taking some honors classes and academic classes, if they're really interested in science, great, push themselves hard in that, and maybe lay back a little bit on English or social studies if that's not a strong area, or that's not an area of interest. The thing that we don't want to see students getting into is not liking math and trying to take a hard high-level course in math, or getting in over their head in math. So like we had said before, it's really about open, honest discussions, and finding out where their interests lie, and pushing hard in those areas, because the more interested they are, the more engaged they're going to be, and that's where they're going to find the most success.
Yeah, actually, we were in the ninth grade classes in social studies last week doing the interest inventory and talking about course selection. I always put this picture in the PowerPoint just because I just love Whitman-Hanson. Even after all these years, I drive up that driveway and just really love the school. And so thanks everyone in the community for helping us get there. It's a great place. So go to the next slide. Okay, so the course selection process. Oops, can we go back one, Chris? Today, you should have all received an email that included a PDF copy of the program of studies, which is the document on the left, as well as the course request form on the right. And the course request form on this side of it, it contains a lot of information about how decisions were made, how you're going to actually make some additional choices of electives in foreign language. So it gives you a lot of information about that. And I hope that you will take a minute or a little bit of time to actually review those documents. Really important as we're going into this process. And what you will see from reading all that information is that the grade 8 teachers made recommendations for course levels for the major academic courses. So English, math, science, and social studies. Again, these forms were emailed home to you today. Hopefully they're in your email. If there's any problem that you didn't get it, just let me know and we'll make sure you get everything that you need. And on the back side of that course request form is the document that's down here in the right-hand corner. And that's instructions for you to actually go online to make to look over your recommendations. So you'll be able to see what recommendations were made for by my teacher's child in terms of classes for next year. So you'll be able to see those levels. You also will be able to go in and actually add electives and add foreign language right on the Infinite Campus portal. So you can do that actually starting today. I checked and a bunch of people have already done it all, but we're asking you to complete that process by March 5th. That'll give us time for you to look things over, to get everything in there. And we like to complete the scheduling process and have everything ready to go sometime in March. And again, instructions are on this course form on this other side. So the course selection process, if you don't agree with the level, please contact the middle school teacher so that you can talk over that decision with them. And after you've had that discussion, if you feel a change is necessary, you can contact your middle school counselor. So that would be Mr. Sabins down at Whitman Middle or Mrs. Sweeney at Hanson Middle. I already heard from Mr. Sabins a few times today about making some changes. And ultimately, it is you and your child who make that course level decision. We give you our best advice, but you're able to make that decision. What's going to be happening is that Whitman Hanson, the high school counselors, and some of our student mentors will be doing some virtual visits to Whitman Middle and to Hanson Middle during the first week of March. So we're going to be talking about classes and activities and sports and drama and music and giving great advice in terms of making a successful transition to the high school. And in terms of transitioning up to the high school, typically we work on the schedules usually all throughout the spring. We try to get them all done before we leave school. And typically they are available through Infinite Campus on the portal, usually a week prior to school starting. And again, we look over everything very carefully, all the selections that you've made. We try to fit in what we can fit in that you want. Then hopefully we will have our freshman first night in person this year. And if so, schedules will be given out to the students that evening. That's held the week before school starts. And then if there is a need for any type of a schedule change, the counselors are available the week prior to the start of school. We like to have all those changes made so that it's really a smooth start and everybody is in their classes and ready to go for day one. So at this point, we have some questions. And I got one question I can see, I think it might have just to me, but it's for a student that's having trouble getting into the portal. So what I would suggest if your child is having a difficult time getting into the portal, that they contact the middle school counselor and they should be able to help them. And if for some reason that doesn't work, please reach out to me and I will do my best to assist you. A couple of questions that I got in through email before the program started. One question was, what happens if lots of people request a certain elective and there's not enough space for everybody? So in the scheduling process, it's a kind of a science and an art maybe altogether, but there are some classes that, for digital photography, it's one of the classes that the kids love the most. So we might have 250 requests and we have every year maybe room for 60 students. So typically what happens is that some of it's done randomly by the computer because the computer, we run it and classes get put into schedules, but often it's the older kids that will get first preference on some of those. So some of those classes that are really highly desired, they may have to wait a couple of years to get. Okay, so I'm looking in the chat here. Let me go back and see. somebody asked about special education. Okay, good question. If your child is on an ed plan, we work very carefully to make sure that they have everything that they need. Dr. Schneeweiss is our special ed coordinator at the high school. She works in concert with the middle school people, and every year she actually prepares for us a chart for every student and every single thing that they need, whatever's on their ed plan, if it's a co-taught class or if it's a strategies class, excuse me, or whatever support they need. And we go through and we check that off. And actually what we do for students who are in IEPs is we put those classes together first, lock them in, and then do scheduling after that. So you can be rest assured that if your child needs something specific due to an ed plan, we will make sure that they get it. We have a great special ed team up here, and they work to make a great transition for the teams that you have at Hanson Middle and Whitman Middle as well. And I would say if you have questions, certainly reach out to your school counselors or your high school counselors about that as well. Okay. And Dr. Jones, I'm going to let you take this one. What is the typical average amount of time per night students should expect in an honors class?
That's a tough question to answer. They vary depending on the subject. So you may be looking at a little less homework in a science class because they're doing labs and so forth in class, where you might be looking at something that takes you a little longer in English class because it involves more reading or more in-depth reading and analyzing of text and so forth. So it varies, but I would say 45 minutes would not be a surprise anyways. You can expect 45 minutes in an honors class. We do talk to teachers, and we're actually in the midst of talking about homework and things like that now, that you know, if you give a student an hour's worth of homework and they have 6 classes a day, that's 6 hours, and that's too much. So they're cognizant of the student's course load and things like that. But like I said, they do need, especially in an honors class, because of the rate that they move at, they do need to do a little more work at home so that they're prepared for class and moving deeper into the content in class.
So the next question was, how many credits do students need to carry each semester or term? So it depends on how the term is set up. This year, we had a schedule change at the right before school started, and we went to a 6-period schedule, and all the students are in 6 classes a day. Next year, with the 7-period schedule, students will have the opportunity to have 7 classes, but excuse me, a lot of them may choose to have that academic seminar, especially if they're carrying a really heavy load with AP classes or all honors classes. They may need that academic seminar to get some of that work done. But generally for next year, I would say it would be 6 classes a semester. All right, someone said, oh, go ahead.
No, that's right. I see one about after school activities. What do you offer? We offer all kinds of after school activities. Typically what we see, and that was actually something I was going to mention before we got off this call tonight, is that we have whatever after school activity you could think of joining, we have it. And you know what, if we don't have it, fill out a piece of paper, get an advisor, send it to me, and I'll approve it. We want to make sure that students have things that interest them. But everywhere from musical after school activities to things like DECA, I know they even take freshmen in the beginning. So one of the important things is that you might want to consider when you're discussing what classes to take, honors versus academic, or how many honors to take, is it would be good to try and join a club freshman year. Typically, we don't see a lot of freshmen joining clubs. That usually comes more in the sophomore year when students feel more comfortable with the school. I would urge the freshmen coming in this year to select something they're interested in or take a look. We're going to have a club fair early in the year next year to show offerings. And of course, because of the virtual stuff this year, numbers in clubs are down. So there's a lot of space in there. There's a lot of room to find something that you're interested in and really do well at it. So.
Okay. So if you have not received the PDFs, what I'm going to ask you to do is to email me. That might be the easiest way to do that. So my email is Ruth.Carrigan, spelled CARRIGAN, @WHRSD.org. And if you email me, I will be happy to get those out to you tomorrow morning.
I also see a question about honors classes being viable with after-school sports like football or baseball. Absolutely, we have a lot of athletes that take honors courses, and again, that depends on your student. Just a personal story about me: when I was in high school, I played football and I wrestled, so I was busy fall and winter, and that's when I did best academically because it built my schedule for me.
Mhm.
So sometimes, students do well with schedules and routines. Um, so that might actually help as long as they have time blocked out for their homework as well as practice once they find out what the practice schedule is.
Okay, for the question about 504 plans, yes, we would treat them very similarly to IEPs. Um, Mr. Fleck is our 504 coordinator at the high school, and the counselors are the ones who actually kind of follow the plans and make sure that everything is carried out. So we would be meeting with you in the beginning of the school year to talk about the plan and making sure that everything is set with that. So yeah, 504 IEP, we've got you covered.
Staff preparing students, good question about not be at the previous level previous incoming freshmen have been at due to remote learning. Our teachers are taking students where they are, meeting them where they are, and bringing them up where they need to be. So if your students in a class and they're having some difficulty, or there's a key concept that they're missing and a lot of the class is missing it because it's just something that for whatever reason was missed or easily forgotten from the year before because of remote learning, they're definitely going to be covering that. So our teachers make sure that they find out the prior knowledge our students have and go from there.
Okay. If a student decides to take an honors class and find it's too much and gets overwhelmed, will they be able to switch out? And I think the answer is maybe, just because of the way that scheduling works. So hopefully students have, like in the first 5 days of school, they're able to make changes pretty much anytime they want to, whether it's an elective that they're not happy with. And so during that first 5 days, there's a lot of change, and that's okay. But if we get into, let's say we're a month in and the student is really struggling, what we would do is certainly reach out to the school counselor. We would talk to the teacher and see if that feeling is that the student is just misplaced. And if so, we would do our very best to move that student into a lower level class. The difficulty is, though, that if, let's say, your child is in honors biology and is really overwhelmed and wants to go into an academic level biology class, if it doesn't meet the same period, sometimes that can get messy and a little bit difficult. But I can tell you that we'll do our very best to work with you. We certainly don't want kids to feel overwhelmed. But I think, on the other hand, that's why we want to try to choose pretty carefully and listen to recommendations for the teachers that you have this year when you're making those decisions.
And I will reiterate this on freshman first night. I do every year. The idea that your students coming into high school, they're going to struggle. And the urge is always to step in and, stop any struggling whatsoever. That's a natural parental thing. But we ask that if your student comes home after the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks and says, this is way too hard, I can't do it, I got to get out of this. We're not looking to let students fail. But students do need to struggle if they're going to grow and get used to it. So there is going to be that period of uncomfortableness. And that has to do with us building a trusting relationship, not just with your student, but also with you, because we're asking you to trust us with a decision like that around the success of your most prized, valuable possession. And we get that. So we just ask that, communication stays open. We like to communicate a lot. That way we handle things before they get too big and everything gets bent out of shape. So just communicate with us whenever something comes up, and we'd be happy to talk with you about it and see what we can do.
So I see a question of what kind of social emotional support do you offer during the transition to high school? Well, one of the things that we do with all of the freshmen is that the counselors within the first couple of weeks, try to meet all of the freshmen so that they get a chance to know us, to see who we are and what we do. Because school counseling at the high school is different than the middle school. We see kids all the time for all different types of reasons. And so we want to get them to get comfortable with us. So what we would do if a student was really struggling, we might bring in one of the adjustment counselors to help support that student. And also a lot of our teachers are really the focus of the district is social emotional learning. So many of them are implementing some SEL strategies like mindful minutes, calm classroom, those types of things that can really help support students as well.
And it's also important. Um, and again, you're getting all this early. You'll hear it. I just miss seeing people. You'll get this again on freshman first night, but it's important that students don't struggle or suffer in silence.
Mhm.
We have so many supports here that we are more than willing to put in place and help, but we can't do that if we don't know. And sometimes we will know, but not all the time. I'd be lying to you if I told you that we know every single time a student is suffering or needs some guidance or support. So please just make sure we work on that self-advocacy and let us know so we can do what we can do. The next question about average class size, that's a tricky question to answer at the high school level. We don't have set classes where we can just look and say, this is how many students we have in a class. We have classes that range from 15 or 16 students to, and not many of those, to 30 students. And we have quite a bit of those. Right now, and I can tell you this off the top of my head because we're looking at spacing and things like that, and how many students we can put in a classroom right now. Currently, we have 87 sections, which are 87 classes above 24 students. And so um, we have quite a few large classes, and now those come in different subjects, and you'll see some of your electives or some of your higher level math courses and things like that where the numbers dip a little bit, but your world languages, your sciences, your English, they're all through the roof.
But we make it work.
Yeah.
And our kids are doing great. Our students, I have to say, I am always so proud of them. We have wonderful kids. They do wonderful things. They're committed to their community. And our students, they're going and getting accepted to the best colleges in the world. They're just amazing kids and they do amazing things. And I think when I talk to some of the reps from Harvard, they always tell me that they love Whitman-Hanson kids because they're real and they're authentic and they really value that. So one of the questions was, will students be assigned to a mentor? And yes, we hope to implement that again this year. We have a freshman mentor program where our upperclassmen will train over the summer, and then they'll get a small group of students to mentor. So hopefully they will be able to reach out in the summer, meet them at freshman first night, tour them around, and then be a support for them in the first few weeks of school and even longer.
And there was another question about peer support groups that deal with social emotional development and things like that. We have a couple different groups that peers tend to gravitate to for type of support, but as far as a formal program, we don't really have a formal program built around just that tenet of social emotional support. That's something that we hope to move to with all our emphasis on social emotional learning in the district that we're doing right now. Once it spreads into the classrooms more, we hope to work with students to get that going.
But we do have a lot of programming in terms of even things like Key Club, and we have a Panther Pals program for students helping support each other who might be dealing with family addiction issues. There's a lot of great programs where kids are taking care of each other. And I guess my last thing I want to let you know is that we are here for your kids' success. That's what we do. That's the work that we do. We want to help them make a great transition. We want to help them have a great opportunity and a great experience while they're in high school. And then we want to send them off with a great plan for what happens after high school. And we can only do it by partnering with you. So please keep in touch. Please communicate with us. And if there's something that you need, please reach out.
Remember that we're always here. You can email us. We're also active on social media. We're active on Twitter if you want to get kind of a flavor for what's going on. I know I'm going to mess yours up, Mrs. Kerrigan. It's I'll throw it in the chat. It's at WHRHS
Guidance.
And then we have a newsletter that comes out weekly on Sunday evenings. If you're interested in getting the newsletter to kind of get a flavor ahead of time, do me a favor, shoot me an email and I'll put you on the list. But the most important out of all those things is to reach out and email us if you have any questions.
I did see a few other questions. So for academic seminar, if your child would like one, my best advice is to actually email the high school counselor and just let them know so we can plan one in their schedule. That's probably the easiest way to do that. And then we are recording the program, and usually it takes us a few days to get it up on our website, but we will be sharing that as well. So for parents that miss this, we'll be happy to put this out and make it available for them.
And we have a question about resources for offering for tutors and help with student study. Maybe I'll get it if I try it a third time. Help students with their studies. Yes, we do. We have the Honor Society helps with tutoring. We have different peer tutors, and we have things that you can get set up with in school.
Yeah, and usually you reach out to the school counselor and then we will help set that up for you. We have a lot of, in addition to the National Honor Society, the broad category, we have subject specific. We have a math, we have English. Usually it's the math where kids need most of the tutoring, and they've been great. Anytime I've reached out, they're very happy to help support other students.
No, we don't. We have most ninth graders, you find they're taking classes with other ninth graders, but as they get to 10th grade, that spreads out a little bit. And then 11th and 12th graders, you find them in mixed classes. It all depends on what the students do for scheduling and what classes they take. But typically ninth grade, because the schedule is as scripted as it is, you find most ninth graders with ninth graders. So that's the first year. Then after that, it starts to branch out based on electives and so forth. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time tonight, taking the time. And again, can't say it enough. Any questions, reach out, let us know, but appreciate you tuning in.
Okay. Good night, everybody.